The assassins of the Imperium. The Galactic Imperium did not tolerate resistance. For thousands of years, they had crushed every rebellion, silenced every dissenter, and annihilated entire civilizations that dared to oppose them. And now they had a problem. A single planet. A single species. Humans. The Imperium had tried diplomacy, offering Earth a place under their rule. We refused. Then they tried economic warfare, sanctions, trade embargoes, blockades. We adapted. Next came conventional war, and that was their biggest mistake. Because when they attacked, we fought back. And we didn't just survive. We won. The Imperium's fleets were shattered. Their armies were humiliated. Their governors and puppet leaders were hunted down and executed. And now the galaxy had seen the truth. Humanity wasn't just another species to be conquered. We were something else entirely. We were the end of the Imperium's rule. So the Imperium did what it had always done when faced with an enemy they couldn't defeat. They sent their assassins. And not just any assassins. The Black Talons. They were the best. An elite order of killers, forged in the heart of the Imperium's darkest wars. They were feared across the galaxy. A single Talon had brought down the great houses of the Zalari nobles. Another had eliminated an entire royal bloodline in a single night. And now, the Imperium had sent 6 of them. Their mission: eliminate the human who had led the resistance against the Imperium. The man who had become the symbol of Earth's defiance. A single Marine. And that was their second mistake. Because they thought he was just a soldier. They thought he could be killed like all the others. But this Marine? This Marine was something else entirely. The target? Captain James Reaper Kane. The man the Black Talons were hunting wasn't a politician. He wasn't a general. He wasn't some fragile, easily replaceable figurehead. His name was James Reaper Kane. A Force Recon Marine trained in deep space warfare, special operations, and Black Ops missions that never made it into the history books. A man who had spent a decade fighting the Imperium's finest soldiers, and winning. And right now, he was waiting for them. The trap is set. The Black Talons were good. They had infiltrated worlds before. Slipped past bioscanners, thermal imaging, and AI surveillance. But Kane had something they didn't. Experience. He knew how assassins thought. Because he had been one too. During the war, Kane had been part of Ghost Team 1. A classified Black Ops unit specializing in eliminating Imperium high-value targets. He had spent years hunting men like the Talons. And now he was going to teach them a lesson. The arrival. The Talons landed on Luna Prime, the largest human colony on the moon. They moved like shadows, infiltrating the city, blending with the crowds, using disguises and hijacking human security networks. In less than an hour, they had zeroed in on Kane's last known location. A remote training facility in the lunar wastelands. Empty. No security. No backup. Just a lone building in the middle of nowhere. They thought they had him. They thought he was vulnerable. They thought they were the hunters. They were wrong. Because as soon as they stepped inside, the doors locked, the lights died, and a voice echoed through the room. Oh, cold. And very, very human. You took your time. The last thing the Talons heard before the room exploded in gunfire was the sound of a Marine, smiling in the dark. Predators in the dark. The Black Talons had assassinated emperors. They had toppled civilizations. They had killed thousands without being seen. And now they were prey. The moment the doors sealed, their instincts kicked in. They split into formation, 6 assassins each trained in 100 ways to kill a man. They activated thermal optics, switched to silent comms, and scanned for hostiles. Nothing. The room was dark but empty. Then came the first sound. A faint metallic scrape. From the ceiling. Their leader, Talon 1, looked up just in time to see something drop. A black shape, fast, heavy, human. Kane hit the ground between them like a meteor, shotgun already raised. Boom. A shockwave of buckshot and kinetic force sent Talon 1 flying. Boom. Talon 4's head snapped back, his helmet cracking open like an egg. Before the others could react, Kane vanished into the shadows. 3 seconds in, and one of the Imperium's greatest assassins was already dead. And Reaper was just getting started. The Marines' playground. Talon 2 cursed and switched to active scans. He fed combat data to his team, mapping the entire facility, running predictive movement models, trying to get a lock on Kane. But the readings were wrong. The room was twisting, the layout shifting. Wait, this wasn't a training facility. This was a kill box. A custom-built death trap. One designed for him. Talon 3 barked a warning, fall back, regroup. But it was too late. The second attack came like a ghost in the dark. A knife, long, wickedly sharp, flashed from the shadows. Talon too screamed as the blade slid through his armor, severing his throat in one precise, brutal motion. He collapsed. 2 down. Talon 5 swung around and fired blindly, plasma bolts lighting up the room. Nothing. Kane had already moved. You're slow. The voice was everywhere, mocking them. I thought they sent the best. Talon 5 felt a prickle of fear crawl down his spine, because he knew. This wasn't a mission anymore. This was a hunt, and they were the ones being hunted. Kane's advantage. The Talons were elite, but they fought with Imperium tactics, cold, calculated, efficient. That worked against civilians, diplomats, and weak enemies. It did not work against a Marine who had spent his entire life fighting worse than them. Because Kane didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like a survivor. He fought to win. No rules. No mercy. Every hallway, every corner, every blind spot, Kane knew them all. He had wired the facility with explosives, rigged doors to lock down at random, and set up motion-triggered traps. Talon 6 barely had time to register the pressure plate under his foot before. Boom. A controlled detonation turned him into red mist. 3 down. Half the team gone in less than 2 minutes. Talon 1 gritted his teeth. Stay together. Cover your flanks. They backed up, forming a defensive circle, waiting for the next attack. But Kane didn't come for them. Instead, he spoke. You think you know war? His voice was calm, amused. You think you're killers? That you're unstoppable? A hollow laugh. You should have stayed in the shadows. Silence. Then Kane whispered, because now you're in my world. And that was when the real nightmare began. The 3 remaining assassins were on edge. Talon 1 was a veteran of 100 shadow wars, but he had never felt hunted like this. Kane was not simply fighting them, he was dismantling them. One by one. Talon 3 switched his visor to full-spectrum scans. Nothing. Talon 5 activated a sonic pulse to map the room. Nothing. Kane was there, somewhere but invisible. A shadow in the dark. And then, the lights went out. Pitch black. Even their enhanced optics failed. Then came the footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Closer. A whisper in the dark. Are you afraid yet? Talon 3 panicked. He fired blindly, plasma bolts streaking through the darkness. A hand caught his wrist. Snap. A brutal, surgical break. His bones shattered instantly. He screamed, but only for a second. Because Kane's knife was already sliding between his ribs. 4 down. The 2 remaining assassins were frozen. Kane hadn't engaged them in a fight. He had executed them. This wasn't war. This was extermination. The fear of a killer. Talon 1 and Talon 5 knew they had one chance left. Escape. Kane was an unstoppable force, but he was still human. He couldn't fight them all if they regrouped, called reinforcements and returned in full force. So they ran. Talon 1 led the way, his enhanced reflexes maxed out, dodging through the wreckage of Kane's kill zone. He could feel cold sweat dripping inside his suit. Talon 5 was right behind him, until he wasn't. Talon 1 heard the gasp, turned just in time to see something yank Talon 5 into the shadows. A gurgled scream. Then, silence. Only one left. Talon 1 refused to die here. He forced himself forward, smashing through a rusted door, sprinting toward the evacuation zone. The exit was in sight. Just a little farther. Then, a whistle in the dark. A high-pitched hum. A whirling blade. Talon 1 barely had time to react before something struck his knee. A tomahawk, ancient, human-made, military-grade. His leg gave out instantly. He collapsed, gritting his teeth in pain. He tried to rise. And then Kane was there, towering over him, looking down like a god of war. His armor was splattered in blood, his shotgun still smoking, his knife dripping red. Kane tilted his head. You lost. Talon 1 reached for his sidearm. Kane kicked it away. Then he knelt and whispered, You should have sent more. The last thing Talon 1 saw was Kane raising his blade. Then, darkness. A message to the Imperium. An hour later, the Imperial Command Center received an incoming transmission. A video feed. They saw Kane, standing over the corpses of their best assassins. Behind him, the walls were painted with blood. He stared directly into the camera. Then, he spoke. You sent your best. Pause. A cold, knowing smile. Send more. The feed cut out. And for the first time in history, the Imperium felt fear. Because Earth hadn't sent an army. They had sent one man. And he was more than enough. The video of Kane standing over the dead assassins spread like wildfire. Within hours, It reached every high-ranking official in the Galactic Imperium. The Emperor himself watched it in silence, his golden eyes narrowing as Kane's final words echoed through the halls of the Imperial Palace. Send more. The statement wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. A mockery of the Imperium's elite. And it worked. Rage boiled over in the highest circles of power. The Imperium had never faced such open defiance from a single individual, let alone a species they once considered insignificant. The High Command convened immediately. The Grand Admiral of the Imperial Fleet slammed his fist onto the war table. This is unacceptable, he roared. A single human, one man, has humiliated our most feared assassins. Across the chamber, the director of the Inquisitorium spoke with cold fury. This cannot stand. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing the room. He stood, his ornate robes flowing like liquid silver. Then with a voice like thunder he declared, "Burn Earth to the ground." The war begins. The Imperial Armada, a fleet of 10,000 warships, was mobilized within the day. Each ship carried millions of soldiers, battle-hardened and ruthless. They were conquerors. They had devoured entire civilizations before. And now they were heading toward Earth. To wipe out humanity. But Kane knew this was coming. The moment he sent that transmission, he had forced the Imperium's hand. And humanity? Humanity was ready. The trap is set. As the Imperial Armada approached Earth, they found nothing. No defenses. No resistance. Just a blue-green world, floating serene and untouched. The Grand Admiral sneered. Pathetic. He turned to his officers. Launch the planetary bombardment. Reduce them to ash. But the moment he gave the order, everything changed. The stars shifted. The void itself shimmered. And then, the trap sprang shut. Thousands of human warships decloaked in perfect formation. Silent. Motionless. Watching. The Imperial sensors were overwhelmed. Hundreds of tactical alarms blared as Earth's true strength was revealed. The fleet that had been hidden for decades. And at the center of it all, a single transmission cut through the chaos. Kane's voice. Come. Controlled. Deadly. You should have sent more. Then, hell broke loose. The fall of the Imperium. The first human volleys didn't just damage the Imperial Armada. They shattered it. Human weapons were beyond anything the Imperium had prepared for. Their cannons fired kinetic slugs at near-light speeds, each impact causing devastation beyond comprehension. Their ships moved faster, hit harder, and anticipated every Imperial maneuver. The Imperium, for the first time in thousands of years, was outmatched. Within minutes, hundreds of Imperial warships were torn apart. Within hours, the entire fleet was in full retreat. And within a single day, the once unstoppable Galactic Imperium had suffered the worst defeat in its history. At the hands of humans. Kane's final message. Back on Earth, Kane stood in the command center, watching the Imperial fleet burn. A final transmission was sent to the Imperial capital. This time, the Emperor himself answered. His once regal face was filled with rage and fear. Kane leaned forward, his expression calm. Then he said the last words the Imperium would ever hear from him. Kneel. The transmission cut out. And for the first time in history, the Galactic Imperium surrendered. Because humanity had won. End of story. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic sci-fi stories.